we are live. So, good morning, Danny. On behalf of Society for Data Science and Birla Institute of Technology, I would like to welcome you as our esteemed speaker for the session. So, let me give a short introduction about yourself. Basically, Danny Sir is an expert in end-to-end machine learning and artificial intelligence systems audit, design, and implementation. Danny Sir provides mentorship in building data teams and analytics coaching. He's a very well-known data storyteller and communicator. And also, I would like to tell you that he is a very celebrated celebrity on LinkedIn for his work in data science and has many followers. So, Danny Sir, please get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Akshat. This is a real honor to be on here live to have a chat with you guys for the first ever data science summit for your society. So this is absolutely amazing. Um, I don't like to think of myself as a celebrity at all. Like I'm just a guy trying to
But
help other
actually, you
people
are,
learn.
sir. For your
No,
contribution on all the Udemy courses you provide for free.
I'm very, very
Yeah,
grateful.
yeah, yeah. They're very much. We are very much grateful for that. So, audience can just type their questions on the chat, and Danny sir will answer all your queries.
I will try my best. Please
Yeah.
don't send me too many difficult questions. I think before we get a few more questions, I guess I can talk about my journey to where I am now. I think
Yeah. Sure.
might be,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're the CEO of Sydney Data Science, and we would like to hear that.
So
Yeah.
for the people who haven't seen me before, my name is Danny Ma. I'm the CEO and founder of Sydney Data Science. I'm also running the Data with Danny virtual data apprenticeship program, which is something which I started just this year. Where I'm trying to deliver as close to a real mentorship slash apprenticeship experience for everyone, similar to what I received from my mentors when I was coming through my career, starting all the way as a fresh university graduate, coming up through the ranks and working through all these different data positions. So I'm trying to deliver something like that. And um, yeah, I'm actually launching my very first online course in the coming week. So please stay tuned. Um, not trying to advertise too much or anything, but I'm just very, very excited about it and couldn't really keep it in. But yeah, I can talk about my early days. So I was born in Hong Kong and I moved to Sydney with my family when I was 2 years old. I pretty much lived in Sydney all my life. I went to high school, and in university, I was doing a Bachelor of Actuarial Studies or Bachelor of Commerce, where it's essentially doing some maths and statistics for the business side and finance. So if you've ever seen insurance companies where they try and predict which people are going to claim their insurance or how much money they should hold in reserves so they can pay out different claims. That was what I studied at university. I also did business economics as well. But honestly, when I when I was at university, I didn't really concentrate as much as I really should have. I spent too much time having fun and enjoying time with my friends and playing different sports and everything. So, for everyone who's still in school, definitely make sure you enjoy the most of it. It's something that everyone should make the most of, definitely. Whilst I was at university, I actually had the opportunity to take on a few internships as part of my university program. So I was really, really lucky and grateful to have those chances to work. I actually spent a total of maybe 15 months working with different insurance companies in Sydney as part of the program. They were actually across three different insurance companies. And about after the first 3 months, I realized that I did not really want to work in insurance. But I really enjoyed using the tools that they were using. We used a lot of we actually used a lot of Excel, and I first got exposed to something which is called SAS. Forgot what it stands for, statistical analysis software, but it was my first venture into some sort of programming. And then as part of my studies, I also got to learn R very, very briefly. And if I looked back at my old code that I wrote, it must have been terrible, like absolutely terrible. But I used a little bit of R, and I found that it was really interesting to try and analyze data and explore what's going on and trying to figure out like what's actually going on with all these numbers and the things that are going on inside the data. So at that point, I realized this was must have been around 20 years old or something when I was doing my undergraduate, that I wanted to do something which was about doing the data, but I didn't really have a good idea. So I reached out to a few people through the university networks and through my internships, where they knew different people working in the analytics industry. And I managed to interview and get a job with one of Australia's data consulting firms called Quantium. I think they actually have quite a big office in India as well, and I think they've expanded recently to I think it's San Francisco. Um, but yeah, I started there and I did just about 2 years working as just a data analyst. I actually focused a lot on reporting and campaign analytics, where we were very focused on doing the email campaigns for one of Australia's largest supermarkets. So I actually got to play around with quite large data sets. It was what people were buying at a customer ID level, at different points in time, how much quantity they were buying, what brands they were buying, and all those different things within the supermarket. So it was really interesting. And then from there, I kind of moved over into the banking world, where I started working with one of Australia's largest banks within their digital department. So I kept moving from my well, I I eventually had I didn't have enough of the challenges that were working with the campaign data and wanted to kind of stretch myself and expand my experiences. So I started thinking, okay, where's my next move? And it just so happened that I had a friend who thought I should go and apply for this digital role within the Commonwealth Bank. So that was really interesting. And that was where I kind of started my data science journey. Around that time, I was looking for more of a challenge. And the people there that I was working with at Quantium, at the data consulting firm, I asked them, okay, I've done a lot of analytics. I'm quite good with SQL, with Excel. What else should I learn? There should be something more difficult because I'm not feeling very stretched at the moment. So they told me, okay, you should do data science and learn Python and R and do all that stuff. So that was when I actually I think I signed up to a Coursera course, and I started waking up really early in the morning, just to try and learn some Python skills on the side. So at that point in time in my career, 2 years in, I did not have much programming skills outside of SQL, and maybe a little bit of SAS. And I literally would wake up at 5:30 in the morning and learn Python for 3 hours and then go to work. And then my boss would tell me, "Why are you coming late?" And I would tell him, "Oh, sorry, I was trying to improve my skills." But yeah, it was an interesting time, and through working on those problems and working with a few different people, I managed to land a role within the bank. And in the bank, that was when I started moving into data science and really getting interested in building predictive models, trying to apply more advanced methods and statistical methods for experimentation. And within those 3 years, that was probably where I grew the most so far in my career, where I worked with, I would say, some of the best data scientists in Australia. Um, Almost without any question, all of the people that I've worked with, they're now running data science teams for some of the largest organizations across Australia. So I'm very, very grateful and honored to have worked with them and learn from them. But through this process, I realized that I wanted to share the same knowledge that I gained from my mentors to other people as well. Um, and then after I moved on from the bank, I actually went back to the retailer. So I was working for Woolworths, Australia's largest retailer. And around that time, I had the opportunity to start my own company and start providing other services at the same time as a contractor. So I took the opportunity, started Sydney Data Science, and I started working on with the clients as well, working mostly on the cloud, doing machine learning. And I moved more into like a data engineering, machine learning engineering role, where I had to help them build data pipelines, build machine learning pipelines, help them automate a lot of their machine learning processes, and then feature engineering and all of those nitty gritty things that most data scientists don't really enjoy doing. But I found that being really close to the data and understanding exactly what's going on was really my passion all along. So after doing that for about 18 months or so, that was around the time when I started being more active on LinkedIn. So at some point when I was working, I realized that I was mostly just working for myself, trying to build up my reputation or build up my own skills. And I wasn't actively giving back to the community, to other people who I really wanted to make a difference. So that was around the time when I started posting more on LinkedIn. For the people who haven't followed me for a long time, back in, I think it was May 2020, I made a post saying, oh, if anybody wants personalized mentorship, please comment on this post and I'll try and get back to you. I posted that, I think it was like at 10 p.m. one night, one weeknight, thinking that no one would respond to it. Maybe I'd get 20 people to respond. And I went to sleep. And the next morning, I woke up and there were 1,500 people commented on that post. Um, and yeah, I was just absolutely, my mind was blown with the amount of demand and reception there was for people to actually work really closely with others who've done a lot of things within the data world, and they wanted to share their experience in a more one-to-one manner or a more personalized manner to actually help them on their journey. So that was around the time when I decided to kind of go headfirst straight into this kind of community building and personal, I wouldn't say personal coaching or anything, but I've just been working with a lot of individuals, and trying to understand what their problems are and trying to um, actually help them with their, say they're working on some work problem or they've got an interview coming up and they're trying to prepare for it. I found that I was really, really energized by helping individuals do that sort of work as opposed to trying to work on the latest technology or working with big data or doing different things in the cloud. And so I kind of followed my heart and just went down this path. And about 9 months later, here we are. I wouldn't even say it's 9 months, maybe it's only 7 months or so, where I've launched my own online school, essentially trying to be like I wouldn't say like the Khan Academy, but like a data academy equivalent. But it's been a really, really fun journey. And I highly recommend for everyone who's kind of starting off and not really clear which direction they want to go in or how they're going to break into data science or different things like that, to kind of don't put so much pressure on yourself. I feel that there's always going to be opportunities that arrive just in time for you to take advantage of. So you just have to keep preparing and be ready to take those opportunities when they come.
So
Okay.
that's a really amazing journey, sir. And one of the best thing about data scientist is the community support which data science gets, and the generous support of all the data scientists around the world is what we are really great to get, because in any other field we don't get such a generous support from community as well. So we have some questions in our chat, like
Oh, let's
here's
do
the
it.
first question. Yeah, what are the things to be careful for that come with being a self-taught programmer pursuing data science?
Okay. This is actually a really interesting question. Thank you so much for this one. So
Yeah.
you might have seen on LinkedIn or different places, there's a term which people use, which is the citizen data scientist, or it's almost kind of like talking down to people, saying that, oh, you learned how to do data science by yourself, so you must not be very good at it. I think that's just terrible. Like, I
That's
feel
just a
that,
myth. Like, yeah,
yeah, I really feel that for anyone who wants to learn data science and actually, it doesn't matter if you're a self-taught programmer, because I was a self-taught programmer where I was learning Python at 5:30 in the morning for a few months before I even started applying for more advanced data analytics roles. So for yeah, anyway, I'm kind of going on a rant here, but don't believe those people when they're saying that, oh, you can't become a data scientist because you need a PhD or a master's, or you need 5 years of experience of working on TensorFlow or different things like that. All doesn't really matter. The most important thing for doing data science, data analytics, data engineering, all of these things, the most important thing is being very, very curious and wanting to know and understand how things work. um, Even as a self-taught programmer, when you write your first few code programs and different things, they're not going to be perfect. I think anyone who starts programming knows this, and it's just something that you don't need to have so much pressure on yourself when you're starting off, and you almost have to have the freedom to make a lot of mistakes, because the best way to learn is to make a lot of mistakes and to learn from them. Of course, there's other ways to learn where you can learn from other people's mistakes. So I highly recommend reading widely, making the most of Stack Overflow and different resources that are out there to see how other people have tackled the problem. In terms of the things to be most careful of, being a self-taught programmer doing data science, is I would say that, Hmm. So 9 times out of 10, the biggest issues that I've seen with people taking on data science problems and trying to solve them, as a fresh starter, or recently having finished some online course or different things where they're teaching them all the methods, is the intuition of when to apply the methods that you've learnt is something that will take time. And it's something that, for a lot of beginner projects, we often see little errors in this sort of application of some of the methods. So, for example, a lot of people would get, like, let's say you're trying to do a portfolio project, and you go to Kaggle, you grab a data set, and then instantly most people would just dive in, start doing exploratory data analysis, plotting all of their things, looking at correlations, looking at um, all the different, like, density plots and all the other things that you could do with the data, um, thinking that they're trying to understand the data, but they haven't thought about what the data actually represents. When we work in the, like, let's say, industry problems, I would say 90% of the actual exploration of the data is not done in the coding, but it's actually done by understanding, okay, this data point comes from this system and it gets generated when this process happens, and it's used by the reporting team. So it's processed once every month because they only generate reports every month. But all of these sorts of considerations are sorts of things where they're not really taught in any of these curriculums at school, or even for a lot of the boot camps, because they're very it's those things which you pick up whilst you're working. So I would say that that's probably the most, the thing that you have to be most cautious of, is that a lot of the things that you'll be learning, the techniques will be very good and the methodologies are perfect, but when to apply them and how to apply them properly to a certain problem, you might get it wrong the first few times, but always keep asking people for feedback. Ask people who are experienced with that industry experience to give you strong and very honest feedback on how you can improve your project or the approach that you've taken. So I'd say the most careful thing is try and get as much feedback as possible, and always assume that there's something to learn from anything that you're tackling. That would be my answer.
that was an amazing answer indeed. And some of the platform which are available to practice data science skills are there out, like Kaggle and other stuffs out there?
Yes, I think Kaggle is usually the first place that a lot of data scientists would start out. Frankly, when I was starting to learn data science, Kaggle was one of the first things that I did as well. So you're not alone in that arena for sure. For everyone else who's starting off, um, what I would suggest is that just understand that Kaggle is more sort of like a very simplified version of how most of the data science problems actually get solved um, when you're working in the workplace. There has to be a lot of upstream and preparation work just to get the data, to understand what it
Yeah,
means before
exactly.
you
80%
start
of the time,
throwing
80% of the time we spend is in data pre-processing techniques to get data ready for the model training. Am I right?
100%. I think even more. These days, model training, like people spend a lot of time trying to, oh, I have to tune my hyperparameters and I need to try this grid, or I need to do Bayesian optimization to try and make sure my model is the most fit to the data. But not a lot of people actually put a lot of time into, oh, how do I split my data sets into training, validation, and test so I can make sure that it will work in a production environment? How can I get the most signal from my training data? Because the positive ratio for my prediction is 0.1%, or different things like that. Those are the problems which are very, very common in the industry when you're trying to apply machine learning and predictive modeling to generate business value. But in a lot of these competitions, they're mostly, okay, here's the data, beat the score, which is good if you want to learn how to do the machine learning and all of the technical components of building models. But it's not so good when you need to apply that knowledge to a real business problem. And that's where a lot of people run into issues where they they usually have like a very solid understanding of the data science concepts, like all the training, validation, RMSE, AUC, rock curves, and different things like that. But they don't know how it applies to the real world. And I want to really stress that for everyone who's listening in. Make sure that you try and put in context everything that you're learning. Doesn't matter if it's from machine learning, from data analytics, data visualization. Try and almost simulate and predict which scenarios you might use these techniques as you're learning it, so it's more of an active learning experience. I find that for me that really helps, because when I learn something, if I know when I might be using it, or at least start thinking about it, my brain just fires in different ways compared to, like, let's say someone teaches you some trigonometry in primary school or high school, and you have no idea when you might ever use this trigonometry or this mathematical thing, so you're not very interested. So yeah, just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, actually, yes. I'm totally agree with your answer. So we have another question, and the question is, what is the importance of mentorship and how can one find one's mentor? And I think this is what our session is all about.
Mm. Okay, so mentorship, very, very important. My I would say, I think my entire career is based off the learnings and the lessons that I received from my mentors throughout the entire process. So I know a lot of people think of, oh, I've how do I say? A lot of very experienced people look internally and they always view, oh, I've done so much. I delivered this and I worked on this problem and I solved it and I reduced the cost and efficiency of the process by $1 million, or different things like that. But it kind of gets tiring when you're talking with some of those people, because they're always just kind of blowing hot air for themselves. I find that when you flip the relationship and you think about, oh, how much can I learn from different people? I'm the sum of all the knowledge and experiences that I've gained, but I've only been able to gain those experiences because of all the people who have helped me along the way. And I think that's where the mentors really come in. Like, I remember I was trying to do data science in the way that I learnt it. So that could have been on Kaggle or reading all these different things on Stack Overflow. Um, and I remember one of the first things I tried to build was like an auto machine learning script or a package or something in Python. And that was the first thing that I actually showed to my group of data scientists who I just joined their team. And it was like the first kind of show and tell, like, um, what have you done recently? And would you like feedback on it? So I shared what I did with the team, and then everyone gave me really great feedback, but they also highlighted some of the areas where I could focus a little bit more on. And I think that's where mentors kind of come in, because so there's kind of like a some people think of mentors as they do all the work for you, which for me it's like totally not that. Some people think of mentors as teachers who teach you specific skills. I also don't think a mentor is a teacher either. A mentor is more like, in my mind, maybe more like a role model slash friend slash teacher slash life coach slash someone who just gives you general advice and you like to be around. Um, and I find that for a lot of my mentors, I was just really lucky that I got to have more time to spend with them because we were working on the same projects. But a lot of the times, you might have a mentor who you see maybe once a month or once every few months. But every time you see them, you always learn just an amazing amount of stuff. It could be about life, about some technical thing that they're working on, or some people skills if they've got strong people skills, or about leadership or project strategy or different things like that. Um, when we think of how you can find a mentor, this one is probably one of the more challenging things. For me, I I can't say that I struggled trying to find mentors, because some people, I would just label them as my mentor and I would learn from them and they wouldn't even know about it. And you can definitely take that approach as well. But the more interaction that you have with the mentor and the more feedback that you can get from them, the faster you can accelerate your growth and your learning, no matter what thing you're trying to learn. So whether it's technical or any of the non-technical skills also. So I would say, how can you find a mentor? LinkedIn is probably a really great place now, ever since 2020 kind of changed everything and we're no longer meeting people in person. LinkedIn is now where we do a lot of networking, as we would maybe in the past at actual in-person conferences or in different meetups and different things like that. So definitely take advantage of LinkedIn. There are there are tons of people in the data community on LinkedIn who are just here to help other people, and they're really passionate about helping. The only thing is that there's not a lot of those people. So oftentimes when someone expresses their desire to help a lot of people, they'll just get slammed with lots and lots of requests for help. So I think if you're going to be asking someone on LinkedIn to be your mentor, just be mindful that there might be other people asking. They might be busy. They're probably working on something, their own family and different things like that. So one of the best things I would recommend when you're reaching out to someone to ask for mentorship or even for feedback or advice on something, um, try to, how do I say, I talked about this on a previous chat as well, but my general advice is to try and keep it very light touch but personable at the same time. So it's a fine line and it really depends on your personality. For me personally, I really enjoy it when people reach out to me and they almost overshare information about themselves in and attempt to connect with me before I even know them, and I really enjoy that. But for different people, they might receive messages differently as well. They might not have as much time as me or different things like that. So honestly, you just have to try your luck and send messages, be friendly, be positive, um, and sooner or later you'll find someone if you don't have a mentor already. Hope that helps.
Yes, sir. So actually, mentorship and mentor are very important, and LinkedIn is one platform where you can find many of those mentors having great experience in the field of data science.
Definitely.
Yeah. So then another question is from Raj. Connect Raj. How you change your stream from finance to data science? I think that actually these both fields are pretty much connected to each other, like usage of SAS software, SPSS, and all that stuff involved in.
Yeah, so I think when I was at university, I was doing some finance courses. But honestly, what I learnt during my university days, I would say less than 5%. No, I would say even less. I would say around 2% I would actually be using in my day-to-day job as a data scientist. Um, yeah, that's it's not a lot because a lot of the things that we learn, it's very different to what we learn in university. I'm not sure if it's going to be different from Sydney to India, for example. Maybe you guys. I feel that a lot of people who I've worked with, where they've come from India and they've done a technical degree in India, are amazing. They are very very technical and very very competent. But in Sydney, our university courses were more like they were very textbook driven. All the like we would just prepare for exams and try and pass the exams and get high scores. And it was less about actually understanding the content and trying to apply it to real life, which is something that I regret because I feel that I could have learnt much better if I actually had that sort of mindset when I was going through university. But again, I was too busy having fun and doing different young people stuff. So no regrets at all. But in terms of how I,
Yeah, we
yeah,
totally get it. Yeah. So scenario isn't much different in India, in between India and Sydney or Australia, better I say.
mm. So it's
Some
more or
things
less
are basically
similar.
common. Yeah, it's more or
Mm.
less the same thing.
Understood. So I would
Yeah,
say,
and it's all about your interest and your luck, whether you try out a new field and you get interested, and that's all about luck, right?
mm, I think it's part luck and part timing. So
Yeah, yeah,
for me,
basically.
yeah, the reason why why I changed from my traditional the actuarial studies and the insurance and the financial stuff over to data science was because I'm trying to think of the exact moment of when it happened. So my manager, when I started my first internship, he was good friends with one of the managers that was working in the data analytics firm that I ended up getting my entry role in. And actually, the I didn't apply for the role back then because I was only 19 at the time. But I went out and got a coffee with that manager, and I was telling him about what I've done previously. I enjoyed playing sports and doing all these different things and playing music and just having fun doing all these different things. And he just kind of gave me a better understanding of what they were doing within that data industry. This was like back in the early days in like 2011, no, 2010. So it was like just just before the big hype of all the data science and everything else. So most people at that time, they had no idea that data and analytics was a thing because it wasn't popular yet. Well, I think like they always had people who were using data, so whether it was Excel or SAS or different things, but they never really had the same level of hype as they do now. I think that's definitely been a thing that has increased ever since 2011, 2012. Um, yeah, but I can't remember what the original question was. But in terms of
No, not a problem. It
in
was the question was how you
changing
change your
streams.
stream from finance to data science. Yeah.
So I think from changing streams, it's the thing that has to happen is that you decide that you want to change. And that's probably the most important thing. You have to have conviction and believe in yourself that, okay, I might be changing my degree, whether it's from finance or some other non related degree over into a more technical degree. And I'm going to try and move into data science because I think that's where the industry is moving and that's where the future is. you have to believe in it, and you have to believe that you can do what it takes to actually move in and be very successful in that career. That's the most important thing. Everything else about how you change it and the tactics and everything, I believe if you have really strong conviction, you'll find exactly the way that you can do it. Um, and like the different tactics you could do is like have coffee with people who are working in the industry, talk to your professors, try and network through LinkedIn, network through your school alumni committee. There's all these different things, but the most important thing is even if you go meet those people, if you don't have that passion, you won't go out to meet those people. So it all starts from wanting to do it. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, so that two of the things that are most important are the first step and the dedication, because the first step is the most important step, and the dedication will help you throughout the journey.
100%.
Yeah. So that's another question. What skills do you consider as most important to excel in data science field?
Okay. So SQL is probably probably a good one. My f-
Yeah.
my very first online course is called Serious SQL, so I definitely believe in that as well. Um, I think definitely SQL, but more importantly, I think that people skills are really, really undervalued in data science. When we think of all the things that we do in data science, like we're talking with coworkers, we're reading code, trying to write code, write really nice comments, write good documentation, um, present whatever data story or present some data visualization, so the audience can understand it. All of this is based off how well can you understand people, how well can you understand the different ways that people absorb information, how well can you understand and understand and also control the language that you use when you're talking to other people, because you could tell someone the exact same message but you phrase it slightly different in a tone that suits one person, and that can have a major impact to what the final outcome is. So I feel that one of the most important things is probably learning how to deal with people and being very good at understanding other people. One of like this is probably a little bit embarrassing, but earlier on in my career, I was not very good at talking with other people, and I was one of those people who was very like I wouldn't say I was bragging, but I was very confident, and sometimes it came across as being like overconfident, and I pissed a few people off, but and that I reckon that actually slowed down my learning because I was spending too much time in the office dealing with like people politics and trying not to hurt people's emotions, as opposed to spending time dedicated on learning whatever I wanted to be doing at the time. So yeah, definitely definitely people skills, definitely very, very important. Another I would say so SQL is really good. And in terms of when I say SQL, it's not just the technical component of SQL, but it's more around the I would call it data comprehension as opposed to data literacy. So a lot of people you might have heard like data literacy, you have to understand what the data means and what a table is and all these different things. But for me, there's still a gap between data literacy and being almost being able to be very competent with data in a technical manner. So you could understand data and the way it flows and all the different systems that it goes through. But if you struggle doing the technical component to tell the data to do what you want it to do, it's still not quite there. So one of the most important things when I think of teaching SQL or learning the different data manipulation and data analysis in Python or R or different languages, the most important thing is to learn how to think with data. So when we think of using data to solve problems, the most important thing would be okay, how do you structure your thought pattern logically so everything makes sense when other people are trying to understand? Because in the end, you're going to have to explain your solution to someone unless you're working by yourself. Um, but definitely having like a very solid understanding of data and problem solving in general. Um, Even when you're tackling all these different technical skills, whether it's SQL, Python, R, or different things, doing all of that, but not trying to solve problems or answer questions with data is missing the point. So learn all the technical things, but think about what sorts of questions and problems you're going to be solving. So I would say, so to answer this question, what skills do you consider as most important? People skills, data
The soft
understanding, data
skills,
problem
the
solving,
teamwork.
yep,
Yeah, yeah,
and probably SQL. I
yeah.
really
Yeah,
think
that. Yeah.
I really think SQL is really important. Like a lot of I've seen on LinkedIn, like a lot of people are saying, okay, don't worry about SQL, do do Excel or do Tableau or do whatever. Um, One of the things in the industry, working as a data engineer and cloud computing and machine learning engineer, SQL is everywhere in that space. So when we think of all the massive cloud databases, so all the cloud providers like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, I think China are coming up with their own clouds. A lot of their data stores are using SQL.
Yeah,
And
so we out there we always don't get data sets in type of CSV or Excel format. We are always going to stream data from some another database. So there that's the place where SQLs come as really handy tool to extract data and other
really,
things from databases around cloud services.
really,
So
really
the
handy.
next, yeah. So the next question is, are higher degrees required for data science or skills, or are enough to pursue a career in this field?
Okay, so this is a really great question because there's a lot of debate on this one
Like a
also.
controversial question type.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, so for me, I only have an undergrad degree. I don't really plan on getting a master's or a research degree or different things like that. Um, Maybe unless there's like some quantum computing crazy thing or something about going to Mars or something crazy, then I might think about it, but probably still not. But for I personally don't think that higher degrees are needed, and that's my personal belief, and it's shared across a lot of my friends in the data community who have much larger followings and much larger influence than I do. So if you don't believe me, you should believe some of them. But I truly think that skills are enough, but the disconnect here is that people learn a lot of skills, right? So we take online courses, we go to online masters courses and do all these different things. And at the end of it, we might get a certificate or like an actual degree. You get some citations or you get some references from some of your professors. But a lot of those things, unless they're coming from a very prestigious school, they don't really help to make you stand out from everyone else who's doing all of those things when it comes to trying to land that breakthrough role for data science. So the most important thing is learning the skills. Of course, that's really really important. But as you're learning, you need to start building your project portfolio, and that portfolio is probably going to be the deal breaker for a lot of people who are coming into the industry now, because there's so much hype and because there's so much competition. It's getting more and more difficult to actually stand out. So the hiring managers or the recruiters or whatever will even look at your profile or look at your resume. So some of the best ways to bypass all of those arbitrary hiring standards and different things like that is to start thinking about your personal branding. And I know this topic makes a lot of people very uncomfortable, because like it's not everyone is out there on LinkedIn posting everything and writing crazy comments and being themselves. And I totally get it. Like for me, I was not I wasn't doing what I was doing like a year ago because I was still afraid. So I totally understand. But one of the biggest things that I've seen for the people that I've worked with recently is once they started focusing on learning all the skills, of course, very important. But when they started focusing on helping other people and sharing their knowledge and sharing their experience and starting to document what they're learning, that's when I saw a lot of growth from them. And it's almost like overnight something magical happened, and then they were going through interviews and they got rejected from 50 interviews, and then magically overnight when they started helping people and starting to be more active on social media and different things like that, they received like 5 different interviews and they got 3 offers like in the next month, something crazy like that. Of course, that's it's a sample size of like less than 4 or 5, but I definitely feel that there's an aspect to it where it's another one of those things where you just want to flick the switch and make the decision that um, I'm going to be a person who learns something, and then I'm going to write about it and share it with other people, because that's one way that I can demonstrate my skills, and I can also help people in the process. So it's like a win-win-win situation for everyone involved. And I feel that this, like, society and like the whole world in general should think more like this, because that's where we can all grow together and no one really has to suffer because someone else is doing well. um, but yeah, hope that helps. To answer this question, high degrees not needed, but skills definitely enough to pursue data science. But you need to be able to demonstrate your skills in a very aware and um, careful but very open way. So that could be connecting with different people in communities, LinkedIn, sharing blogs, writing Medium posts, doing all of the above, um, recording yourself, putting yourself up on YouTube. All of these different things will help. Just try to, I would say, test the waters with a few different things, and just be mindful that when you first start doing it, you probably won't have many people reading it, or you might not have a lot of viewers or different things like that. So don't worry, that's totally normal. Like for me, I remember like my first post in LinkedIn had like 2 likes or something from many years ago. So it happens to everyone. And it's just something that over time, once you start doing it more and more, you just kind of get over it. You think like, who cares if only 20 people like my post? That's enough. As long as it's helping one person who might be reading it to get something out of it and learn from it. So that's the sort of mindset I usually promote to a lot of people that I talk with.
Yeah, so basically, I need to just rephrase the answer to the audience. Basically, proof of skills is required in the resume, and that comes by building projects from and doing some end-to-end implementations, and having some cloud skills will definitely help them out too.
Definitely. Cloud is going to
Yeah,
be very important.
yeah, and so there's one question from my side. What do you think about quantum computing? Like, how many years is going to take to move into actual world
So
applications?
I have a good friend who's doing his PhD in, I think he's doing his PhD. He's doing more research in quantum computing in New South Wales University in Sydney.
University
And
of New South Wales,
yeah,
Sydney. Yeah, I got it.
and he was
Famous one.
telling me,
Yeah.
yeah, he was telling me how like he's doing all sorts of different things. And like I'm actually scheduled to have like a catch up with him probably like sooner rather than later, to find out more. But I think that it'll be the next frontier. So all of the different types of computation and whatever we're doing now could just all simply be eclipsed once they figure out how to use that sort of technology in our current computer chips, for example. Like you might no longer need to have a very expensive GPU to train some chunky deep learning model, and instead you just need the cheapest model of some quantum chip, and it'll do it in 1/10 of the time or something like that. So I feel that all the different things where, like, a lot of people focus on trying to optimize their computing for good reasons. So a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to distribute their computing on GPUs so they can train their models faster, train with more data, and all these different things. Which is, they're really interesting challenges, and they're definitely like very useful and very valuable. For me personally, I tend not to care so much about the optimization piece of things. I really try to go for understanding of all the different technologies that I'm working with. So if we're doing deep learning, for example, I'd want to know, okay, all the different architectures, what's going on, what do all these nodes mean, What are the different types of components and layers that I can build with? I'd rather like almost go from the ground up as opposed to, okay, I need to make this thing go scale straight away, as opposed and then not understanding the intricate components. This is like just for deep learning, but it applies for all sorts of different things as well.
Yes, I totally get it. Like Google, few months before, came up with TPUs, tensor processing units, that were about 10 times faster than GPU.
Exactly. Like
Yeah,
there's a Moore's law, I think it is, where the computing power increases exponentially. I forgot the rate, but it's like this chart where I'm going to try and draw on the screen, where it just goes like up like that, where the computing power just keeps going faster and
yeah, yeah.
faster. So
The more
yeah,
the more the time the model takes in training, the more the processing gets faster and faster.
I think
Yeah,
something
so it's
similar
like
like that, but
yeah,
for
yeah. So
general
some
transistors. So it'd be like the computing power of human
more
society.
generalized and parallel version of a CPU, or basically you can say that. So here is another question, and the question is, what top tools you prefer? Just let me stream on the screen. What
Mhm.
top tools you refer for a newbie data scientist, like tools to maintain code and all? So I think one better answer would be like just try out the PyCaret library.
I personally have not used the PyCaret library yet.
Yeah,
It's
but
actually
but you should
been
try it. It's like amazing, and specifically for people who have a title of citizen data scientist.
definitely tried to make use of these convenient packages that bundle up a lot of the tools. Um, there's definitely a lot of you'll save a lot of time doing it that way, and you'll be able to learn some of the tools which a lot of people are using in the industry right now. Another thing that so this might sound controversial, but one of the things that my main data science mentors told me when I first started was they challenged me to actually implement my own machine learning algorithms and packages from scratch. So I would try and read the documentation for decision tree or random forest or different things like that, and try and actually code it using basic Python types and maybe pandas at the most. Or probably, I think they told me don't even use pandas, just use NumPy. But that's like a different approach. I would call it like learning machine learning the hard way, where you literally you try and build it from scratch to try and understand
Yeah,
all the
that's
components.
so the best method would be out there exploring all the different libraries, stuffs, packages, APIs, and just try to play with it.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you can start playing with it. I think that's the first step. And then once you're comfortable using some of these things, you can challenge yourself and try and build your own. I think that's a really good exercise, but it's not for everyone. You have to have like a certain mindset, and you have to have enough time and energy to do it as well, because it's quite challenging. But in terms of tools to maintain code, definitely learn Git, version control, GitHub. Um, very, very,
Git and
very
some basic deployment platforms like AWS, Docker, Kubernetes. and
I think the
They're
Docker will be
yeah,
yeah, Docker is really important as well, but for a newbie who's just starting off, it might it might challenge you to cover all these things at the same time. So probably the first step would probably be try just playing around with the machine learning packages. So PyCaret, um, PyTorch, or whatever it is. Like just have fun and just try and learn as much as you can. Um, the when it comes to maintaining your code and sharing it with people, definitely look into GitHub. That would be my recommendation. We use it everywhere in the industry. So whether you're saving code, sharing it with people, deploying your code to production systems, we mostly use that technology. So it's very useful to learn early on. Um, and I think Docker, Kubernetes, cloud, everything is important, but just take your time as you're going through it. There's almost not too much need to jump straight into it at the start. You'll know over time, and make sure you're asking different people for their opinions and their advice. But sooner or later, you'll run into a project where you need to do that stuff, and that's when you'll learn it properly. I I think that was
yeah,
how I did it as well.
yeah, yeah. That was a great answer. Yeah. So another question is, how do you find internship as a university student? And I think you provided an answer for that. Just go out and explore LinkedIn and make connections, ask different recruiters and HR to just provide you with an internship.
Yep. Um, I was really lucky because my program had built-in internships, so I was one of the very, very, very lucky people. For a lot of people, it's really difficult now to find internships because everyone's looking for an internship. So I would say the it goes back to the same thing about building your portfolio, your personal branding, your
Yeah, personal
presence.
brand is really important out there. Yeah.
Because I feel the best way to stand out is just to be someone who other people know about. If that, I
Yeah.
know it sounds really simple, but it really makes a difference.
But it's
And
really
there,
difficult out there. Yeah.
mm,
Some of the people out there will just see your post and ignore it and they won't comment, like it, or they will just report it due to some
oh,
personal reasons out there. There are some of them doing this thing.
you should be fine about the
So
reporting. I've never been
yeah,
reported so far. Touch wood. So,
yeah, there has been scenario in India. So I just
oh,
can't discuss
really?
about that.
Mm.
Basically, it was involving an ed tech startup.
Oh, interesting.
You must be knowing. You must be knowing about that. The stuff going all over the LinkedIn and other. Okay, so yeah, let's not
Like,
talk about it.
yep.
So another question about LinkedIn and the same question.
Yeah, the same
So
thing. I think
yeah, yeah, yeah. You provided the answer.
the most important thing is just to get out there. And there's a very famous female author called Brene Brown. I think I'm remembering it properly, but she writes about like vulnerability and authenticity and just trying to be yourself in this new age of like where we're always being forced to like pretend that we're someone else or pretend that we're strong or do all those sorts of things. So highly recommend something. Try to read the book called, I think it's The Power of Vulnerability. It might be the one. I'll try and find it and I'll comment later in this video.
Okay, sure, sure,
Uh,
sure. Yeah,
but one of the things was just show up and be seen was one of the main takeaways that I got
yeah.
from the book. So just go on
Okay.
LinkedIn,
So
start posting, start doing something.
let's move on some other questions. Like I see one interesting question apart from involving internship and LinkedIn. Here's another question. Among software developers and data scientists, who are highly paid and why? So what will be the answer for to this question?
I would think of it in different tiers. So the top tier software developers versus top tier data scientists, software developers would get paid much, much, much more because they're out building crazy things. When we think of, let's say, management tier, probably they would be equal. But in general, I feel that software developers get paid much more than data scientists. If you factor in data engineers and machine learning engineers as software developers, they also get paid more than data scientists as well. But it depends because some companies might think of data scientists as doing all of that stuff, and they might be able to compensate them a bit better. But in general, what I've seen is usually software developers. It's a mix. So there's like if you are developing software in very trendy and very in demand skills, like let's say I don't know, Scala, Rust, Go might be some of the more popular ones now. Python,
Scala, Rust,
yeah,
Golang, and learning all the big data stuff,
yeah,
Hadoop.
yeah, all of those things. Spark, they might be able to help you earn a bit more money, but the thing is to get that experience, you have to do quite a lot of work as well. So I think it really
Yeah,
depends.
we need to have nice experience with all the real world data to start
But
experiencing with to start playing with those tools
definitely,
explicitly. Yeah.
but definitely
So
the
here
leadership
is
level data scientists will also get paid a lot because they're helping the business make really important decisions. So you can
yeah
think of them as
the
like
lead data scientist
uh,
role. Yeah.
like lead data scientists, or like general manager of data science, or different things like that. They would be like the future CEOs of data driven companies because data will take over the world, sort of thing.
So another question is this one. Sir, everyone says data science is the hottest job of 21st century. I think that it was mentioned in some like in Harvard Review magazine.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's where it became so trending. So could you suggest why one shouldn't go into data science blindly just because it is trending and everyone else is doing it?
Hmm. Okay. Oh, I know that we've just hit 1 hour, but I'm more than happy to stay on for as long as you guys need to answer more questions, as long as Akshat is okay with
Yeah,
it.
so we don't have many questions left. Yeah, so we
Awesome.
we know about some date time constraint as well, so we don't keep you involved in this session so much. So just 10 minutes, okay? Yeah.
No worries.
So in 10
Okay,
minutes we'll be yeah.
all done. Okay, so definitely the HBR article, the Harvard Business Review one. I think it was DJ Patil and forgot the other person's name, but they were writing about data scientists as the sexiest job of the 21st century. I feel that that was the thing that really switched on the hype level, and then since there's been a lot of I would say cloud computing has come in and made data very, very scalable in that sense. So before we would do everything on premise, you would have to own like a computer farm if you wanted to do at scale data science, which was quite expensive. But with the cloud, you can kind of rent out computers, and now it's actually really, I would say cloud computing is more important or trending than data science in some way. A lot of the computation and the things that we're doing, not just for data science, but for applications and data processing and data analytics and all those reporting needs are moving to the cloud as well. Um, and I think that's an area where there's not a lot of people in at the moment. And it's the skills are more or less in line with data science. So I would say for anyone who's out there learning data science at the moment, consider leveling up in cloud skills at the same time, because purely because not many people are doing it. And also because cloud is going to be very, very important in the future, if it's already very important now. um, I feel for people going into data science blindly because it's the sexiest job, or you hear that it pays well, or you get to solve interesting problems and different things like that. Um, there's always going to be people like that. If you feel that that was where you started, that's fine. Like I feel that everyone gets into data science for different reasons. It's not about how you start, but how you continue to grow and continue to have an impact on business problems, as well as having impact on other people by sharing your knowledge about what you know as well. So don't worry too much about people who are going into data science blindly. I feel that I was just really lucky because I kind of fell into it and I just happened to find what I was passionate about early on. I don't think everyone has that same opportunity, or that that chance to just find something that they really enjoy doing. So, um, by all means, I feel that people always talk about, oh, they're just doing it for the money. And for me, I don't find anything wrong with that. We all need money at some level to do things, um, to like have a better life for us and our families, and to help other people make donations to charity. So it's definitely not a bad thing. I would just say, um, over time, keep assessing why you're going into data science, for everyone as well. Like, if you think that you're going in there because you love solving problems, but you start working in the industry and you find that you're not solving any problems, that's not a good thing as well. So, it like I said before, it doesn't matter how you start. It's all about how you keep assessing yourself as you're going through that journey and how you can continue to grow and improve.
So yeah, so we totally got you. Like so another question about it's related to mathematics. For Python, I have found a lot of courses online, but mathematics is also a very important part of data science. So according to you, what is the most efficient way of learning the math for data science?
Hmm. I would say there's different levels of math that you might understand. So let's say you wanted to do okay, so there's the machine learning component of data science. So you wanted to do, like, let's say you wanted to do deep learning and crazy neural networks and learn about all the architecture and read the mathematical papers and understand what's going on. You'll need a high level of understanding of math for that component. But the thing is, when we start working in data science, maybe 1% or even less of the entire data science roles out there or the data science community are actually doing that stuff as their day job. It's a very, very specialized and rare job that usually people spend many years working in research or many years working in the industry before they work on projects that need that level of mathematics. So that's one thing. We'll talk about that later. So that's one component. Another one is when we think about using data science for experimentation and statistics and trying to figure out if something that the business did was actually impactful to how much revenue they generated this quarter, different things like that. You need a very specialized type of mathematics for that. And a lot of people don't think of this as maths, but it's more around logical understanding, statistical thinking, probability. I wouldn't say probability theory, but understanding of probability. And for this middle ground of, like, I would say 90% of data science is actually dealing with this sort of stuff, including maybe a little bit of time series forecasting and sampling or different things like that. You can definitely learn this skill set through, I would say, reading not textbooks, but reading widely about probability. So, for example, one of my favorite authors is Nassim Nicholas Taleb. And he's the famous author of The Black Swan, Anti-Fragile, Skin in the Game. He's got a lot of books all about the thinking about statistics, but tries to apply it in very common common language, in very common typical daily tasks. And I think that's the level of statistical understanding that a lot of us need within the data science realm. It's not so much about, I need to remember the formula for L1 and L2 regression and how they impact the gradient of whatever. Like, all of that stuff you can kind of pick up when you need it, like for specific problems. I find that for all the problems that I've dealt with throughout my career, it's always been about the statistical understanding. Does it make sense to do this? And I've managed to, through my experience, to build up strong intuition about when something doesn't feel right about data. I think that sort of understanding is where a lot of people can actually build without having to read a lot of mathematical papers and actually be able to like derive some gradient descent or different things like that. Like, you'd only need them if either you really wanted to understand the machine learning from basics, from very fundamentals, or you're doing machine learning research. The most of everything else is about creating really good metrics, being smart about how you're dealing with data, analyzing different things about data sets like the median, the range, the different percentiles. All of these things you build up over time, and they're actually not too difficult to pick up as well. So yeah, I would say the most efficient way is to start reading about statistical theory, probability theory. I know the theory part sounds dry, but you can, like, Taleb's books are very, very good. There's a host of other, like, elements of statistical learning that have a lot of coding components to it as well. But try and learn by doing is what I would recommend, as opposed to dryly going through a textbook and trying to understand all the math, because most people don't enjoy doing that stuff.
Yeah, and exactly, some storytelling skills too, because sometimes data scientists need to explain what they have done to stakeholders in the simplest manner, and that's where the skills come handy.
Definitely, if you have to explain math to non-math stakeholders as well,
Yeah,
that's
like
a very
someone from
important.
management or yeah, yeah. So another question from Mr. Basu: how can I pursue my data science career in financial field? I think you have answered the question. So let's move on to the next one.
Oh, I can give you a quick additional thing for this for the financial field. One of the most interesting things is probably to try predicting the stock market because there's a lot of data
Yeah,
out
the
there and
getting
there's a lot of
started with stock market prediction project.
like I would try that and then try and like write an article or a blog about your experience learning that, because the learning process and demonstrating that you can learn about a new industry even though you don't have much experience in it is much more important than the actual output of whatever your project is. So the learning outcomes and how you're demonstrating your ability to learn and communicate is much more important than the actual project that you're delivering.
Yeah. So another question is, so basically, let me tell you in short, should I get an analyst job first, or a basic or a completely in-depth data science specific job like computer vision? And yeah,
Okay, depends on your level of experience. So if you have a lot of like really strong education in computer vision and you've done like some higher education there, then it might be feasible to actually apply for some of those jobs. Just know that there's not many of those jobs out there, but you can definitely still apply. But if I were in your position, I would kind of cast my net wide, and I wouldn't think of an analyst position as like, oh no, I don't want to do an analyst position because I want to do computer vision. Even when you're in the computer vision field, you still have to do a lot of the things that we deal with general data. All the data comes in as probably objects in some JSON database or different things like that. Maybe you have to clean it up a little bit, do some transformers, and then run it through some Python program to actually give you some predictions or training. So all those things you might still be able to get exposure to working in an analyst job. But if it's like an entry level role, just being within the data space is going to be very valuable. So I wouldn't discount a regular analyst role as a first job, because I think that you can definitely learn a lot of skills there. And if you're passionate about the computer vision, there's nothing stopping you from continuing to improve your skills on the side as well. So just keep that in mind too.
yeah. So we got it. And here's another question from Mr. Roxil Lamour. Hi, Danny. What moves you to keep on helping data science aspirants instead of enjoying your time with your hobbies? And I think she knows you really well.
Hi, Roxelle. Nice to see you here. Um, so recently, this is a really funny story actually. So during when
Yeah.
Sydney
So
first went into lockdown, I was like, oh, what am I gonna do with all my time? So I bought like an Xbox controller and I installed like Boot Camp on my Mac and I started playing computer games for like the first time in like over like 10 years or something. And I realized that I really enjoyed just getting like really focused on one thing and not having to focus about other things, and time would just pass. Like I wasn't very good at playing computer games, but I just realized I just loved being like very focused on something right in the moment and nothing else could disturb me. So I got the realization that, oh, if I find something that I really enjoy doing, I can just kind of lose myself in it. And that's a good thing. And I just happened to decide that I wanted to lose myself in spending a lot of time trying to help other people. So you could say that my hobby now is actually helping other people solve their problems, as opposed to like trying to learn different skills for me to try and improve my resume or to work on a personal project because I'm interested in some new technology. I get much better personal returns when I work with someone to solve some data problem that they've been working on and they couldn't solve. And I just needed to tell them, oh, just change this little bit of code and see what happens. And then it just magically works. Um, I find that that's like my new hobby, and I really enjoy doing those things. And I think even when I started doing all the coursework and trying to build my online school and stuff, it felt more like it's still a job, but it's not really at the same time because I just enjoy doing that thing. Like I love trying to like write something in a way where many people can learn from it or the most people can understand it, and trying to tailor some sort of experience so people can have a better learning experience than what I had when I was going through it. So yeah, I would say that it's not so much spending time on helping other people, it's spending time helping other people, which is also helping me have a good time too.
Yeah, that was really great. So we have another question from Miss Juan Floor, and we have actually multiple questions from him. We need to
Sure
know,
thing.
do we need to know TensorFlow?
I would say no, you don't need to. Um, I would say neural networks as a general thing is like an optional consideration. Um, a lot of people would disagree with me. Like, you need to know PyTorch or TensorFlow or whatever, but like
Yeah, different
most
frameworks out there like
machine,
Fast
yeah,
AI
there's
and other deep learning
so
libraries.
yeah, I would actually recommend you to just jump on Fast AI. They've got like a free PyTorch course, which is really really good quality.
Yeah, it's
Um,
interesting at the same time too.
yeah,
Yeah, so
and
another
yeah,
another question from the same person: data engineer or data scientist? Best job for 2021. So I think
it depends.
actually
Oh, you go first. Sorry.
data scientist, being a data scientist involves being someone who knows data engineering and data science skills too, according to today's business context.
Yeah, I think these days the businesses out there are actually they're looking for more data engineers than data scientists, purely because most of the time when people go into a data science role, they think that they'll be doing a lot of machine learning, deep learning, crazy simulations, experimentation, all the cool, sexy things that everyone talks about in boot camps and online courses and different things like that. Majority of the time, you're in there trying to get data from some crazy team that has a silo that hasn't shared data in 5 years. Now you need to understand the data and then automate it across. So then you can start doing some reporting and dashboards and insights to then do some machine learning on it. So it's all a process, and that's the typical approach whenever you start like a new data project. And for me, when I started, I thought of data scientists less about the machine learning and the crazy stuff, and I thought data scientists was more like a kind of like a SWAT team. Like, people just drop them into really difficult problems, and then they tell you, okay, you three solve this problem and make it work because no one else has figured it out before. And that's what I thought data science was when I first started. And I loved the idea because it was like challenging and technical, and you have to understand data, and you have to be good at automation, and you have to be able to talk to people. It was like really awesome for me. Might not be awesome for everyone, but actually, what I realized was the first 90% of it is probably engineering work, like apart from the exploration and the testing and experimentation stuff. Everything where you need to get data from different systems and automate it and make sure everything is robust and testable, that's all data engineering. And for a lot of people, it's not really interesting work, but it's actually really, really valuable and actually more, I would say it's more challenging than some of the data science work. But it really depends on what your mindset is and what you enjoy doing. So if you like automating things and building systems, then engineering is perfect for that. But if you want to dig in and investigate data and run experiments and test out different machine learning models and do different things like that, then maybe think about doing the data science more because you do less of that in the engineering. But having a good mix of skills in both realms makes you really, really powerful and useful.
Yeah, and a better paid too.
I think so.
Yeah. So the last question for today is: how do you start with your first project? Does it always have to be innovative or and a first timer to make an impact?
Okay, I'll talk about the innovative and the first project. Let's say you're talking about first project for your personal project or your portfolio project. Most of the time, a lot of people actually recommend trying to source your own data. So whether it's like your Fitbit data or your eating habits or your meal data or your weight data or different things like that to analyze it for your own usage, that can definitely have an impact. And it's pretty innovative if you ask me, because you have to figure out, oh, how do I even get my Fitbit data, or how do I get my YouTube or LinkedIn data so I can analyze it? So I think that's pretty cool. And my friend Ken G, who's big on YouTube and big on LinkedIn as well, he highly recommends doing something like that, like looking at your own data that you generate, because you'll understand it better than anyone else. I think that's really cool. But when we think of a first project in the workplace, this is also really interesting because oftentimes when you're working on a first project, or you need to, like, let's say you're working in a non-data science or not even a data team, you have to convince your boss or your manager to even give you the time to work on something, or the access to some data to actually play around with something. So, but definitely you can have like a huge impact. Like, I've worked with someone where they're working in almost like an accounting domain, where they're helping the team run some sales reports every month or different things. And he suggested to their like head of department, like, oh, I was working on some churn prediction and some like customer retention stuff on Kaggle, and doing it for my own personal studies. Do you mind if I have a go using the data to do that for the company? And they let him do it because no one else had thought of doing something like that before. So I think it's all about like trying to be proactive. If you're going to go for your, like, in the business, you're trying to start something new where you're going to be leading a project for the first time or something, it'll be really challenging, but it'll be really great experience. So definitely give it a go, and just don't be afraid to start and ask for help whilst you're doing it too. But yeah, there's definitely lots of avenues to be innovative, even as a first timer working on any project.
So yeah, that was really informative answer. And another input from Ms. Roxel Lamour. Thank you for bringing
Thank you.
Danny to share his data wisdom to us. Yeah, we will really like to express our warm regards to you, sir. Thank you for attending our data science summit and creating a new spark. As we know that there are some time constraints, so we would like to end today's session, and the recording will be available on our YouTube channel. So thank you,
Awesome.
sir.
Thank you so much for having me. And for everyone, please follow me on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Check out,
yeah. I would also like
yeah,
to recommend, sir. Follow him on
follow me on
LinkedIn, and he always
LinkedIn.
shares awesome stuff. He's a really good mentor, so you can reach him out on LinkedIn, and you will also get some free and really amazing Udemy courses out there too.
Yep, follow me on LinkedIn. Try and join my Slack if you can. There's a link somewhere on my LinkedIn somewhere, or you'll see it on some of my posts in a comment. And also, please do check out datawithdanny.com. I'll be doing a soft launch for my Serious SQL course this week. I'm hoping to actually do the launch tomorrow. So
Yeah, so
um,
that's amazing. So just share us the link. We will be there too, sir.
definitely. But yeah, please check it
Yeah,
out. It's my version of what I want the data science and data internship slash apprenticeship experience, working directly with me. So please do check it out. And yeah, feel free to contact me on Slack and LinkedIn.
yeah. Thank you so much, sir.
No worries. Thank you for your time. Really fun.